Here at the Canadian Club, we have always been a forum for public figures, thought leaders, and decision makers to share their ideas and inform the most relevant and compelling conversations of our time.
We are dedicated to encouraging debate on the issues that matter to this city, this province, and this country.
The Canadian Club is one of the most important podiums anywhere in the world that a Canadian can speak to, tell Canadians what it is that they think, develop those thoughts. And so I want to thank you for that very, very much.
Please join me in thanking our esteemed panelists today.
Through our programs and events, including our youth and young leaders programs, our diversity partnerships, our joint events, and our media and social media opportunities, we offer you access to dynamic political, social, and business figures from abroad and right here at home.
The platform from which the eloquence of Canada has flowed all of that time, whether it be business, education, politics, sports, arts, and culture. If someone wants to say something to Canadians about this country and about the future of this country, this is the venue you choose.
Good afternoon, Canadian Club members and guests. I'm delighted that you have been able to join us in person today and partake in lunch, connecting with old friends and making some new ones as well. This is really one of, we were talking about this at our table, one of the things that really makes an event like this, the Canadian Club special, the opportunity to create fellowship and connection in business and beyond. My name is Joseph Lowe, President of Canadian Club Toronto, and I am thrilled to be your host live and in person at the Royal York today. Special appreciation to those of you who are joining us online. Thanks to Van Valkenburg Communications and LiveMeeting.ca, our AV partners. We're very pleased to be able to offer this digital option to you for all of our events. We're also deeply appreciative of the generous events sponsorship provided today by our partners at TD. And thank you to our season sponsor, the Canadian Bankers Association, for its continued support through our entire 125th season. I'd like to also acknowledge and thank Canada's Forest Trust and ESG company Planting Smart Forests to take action on climate change. Our partnership with Canada's Forest Trust is reducing the carbon footprint of our entire season of Canadian Club Toronto events. I'm also pleased today to be hosting students from the Toronto Metropolitan University's Aerospace Engineering program. Welcome. I'd like you all to stand, please, and be acknowledged. I'm sure you're paying attention. These are going to be our leaders of the future for your incredible industry. Mr. Martel is here with us this afternoon just after his earnings call this morning, and I am, for one, very excited to hear from him to discuss the report on the quarter and the year, and perhaps field some questions with respect to the most important strategic imperatives that lie before Bombardier itself, and how it sees the market of the global aerospace industry as well as the defense sectors moving forward. If you have any questions of your own, please do use the Q&A cards. You'll find them at your tables. We'll gather them up and get them to Mercedes Stevenson, our moderator. And if you're joining us online, you'll see the Submit a Question button on the right-hand side of your screen. Submit your question there, and we'll be sure to get your questions that way as well. And now it's my pleasure to turn things over to Bob Durance from TD, who will introduce our special guest today as well as our moderator.
Monsieur Durance. Oui, je sais.
All right. Thank you, and welcome to the Canadian Club. It's great to see so many people here today and have people online as well. I think the last time I was here was when Eric spoke a little less than a year and a half ago to the same audience, and it was one of the first openings of the Canadian Club, as I recall, for an in-person event. As mentioned, I'm Bob Durance. I'm the chair of TD Securities. I'm here today to introduce Eric Martel, who is the CEO of Bombardier, as you all know. Eric has been a tremendously valued partner of TD Securities, and we really appreciate that and appreciate all the work that we do with his team. Recognizing that this is the introduction and not the speech, I'll be brief. Because Eric has a long and distinguished career, so I could spend more time on that, but I think you'd rather hear from Eric directly about the topics of the day. He was at Bombardier from 2002 to 2015, had a very successful career there. People that I've spoken to who worked with Eric back in the day or who are still at Bombardier when he came back just speak to how well Eric got into the details and the operations and the building of the product, and that was built the groundwork for the success that Bombardier is experiencing now. He left briefly to go to Hydro-Quebec for almost 5 years and had a very, very good career as the CEO of Hydro-Quebec, which is obviously a large and growing part of the Quebec economy. Came back to run Bombardier. He's going to, I think, talk about what's happened there and what he expects will happen in the future, and I'm really excited to hear that, Eric. And then I guess lastly, Eric is, I think, is important. A very dedicated and committed leader. He offers his time to numerous volunteer opportunities. He's been actively involved in Centraide of Greater Montreal for many years. Served as co-chair of fundraising in 2019. He's also involved in the Montreal Mental Health University Institute Foundation and Robotique First Quebec. He was named one of the 5 most influential people in Quebec by L'Actualité in 2018. I'm really looking forward to your talk, Eric. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
So good afternoon, everybody. It is a real honor for me to be in front of you today at the club. I've been here like probably a year and a half ago. And really today, you know, I've been in the job almost 3 years now back at Bombardier. It's been quite a journey, to be honest, because I started April 6, 2020. So I'm sure you all remember where you were, probably sitting at home somewhere, not in the office. But it's been quite a journey since then, and you know, today I'm amazed how the team at Bombardier has been able to raise and totally transform where we were and what we became, but always keeping, you know, the essence of our culture, of our ability to design amazing product. And that's what I want to share with you today, give you a bit of an update on where we are in that journey. So a lot of people say, you know, are you still producing Ski-Doos? You know, another company produced Ski-Doos. We've sold it in 2003, but we also sold our train division. So today, we also exited in the aerospace the commercial aircraft. When I say commercial aircraft, meaning airplane delivered to airline. So we don't produce airplane to airline. We are strictly focused in business aviation, private aviation, so we build private jet. And we build the Challenger and the Global, that are the two models we build, you know. There's a few variations of those. But they are clearly today, if you go and you travel the world, the most renowned jet are being designed and produced here in Canada, in Toronto and in Montreal, with a large supplier base. One very, very significant path of growth for us also has been our services. We have 5,000 airplanes between Challenger and Global and the Legacy Learjet flying all around the world. Wherever you go and you land on an airport, there's the likelihood of having at least a Bombardier airplane or many is very strong. So we are, you know, shining and making Canada shine all around the world, having all these jets in service all around the globe. The other path, so the path of service is very important. It's becoming close to about being 25% of our revenue. Last year, we increased by 1 million square foot our service center in the world, and I'll come back to that a little bit later. But we also have one very significant leg now that is starting smaller. We've been around defense for a long time, but it was always a bit of an anecdote. You know, the American call you, they say, you know, can you do this? We say, yes, we can with a Global, modify the platform. It become a surveillance communication piece of equipment for them. And we've been doing it a lot, okay, for over the years with all our platform. But today, we decided to create a real business unit dedicated to defense within Bombardier, leveraging the capability of the platform that we have. And today, just to put a few numbers, so we just announced our revenue at 6.9 billion, but if you translate into Canadian, we're a company of a 9.3 billion Canadian. And our employee today, we have 15,900 people. And I'll talk about more also the supply base. This is just strictly Bombardier people, and I already mentioned the 5,000 airplane. Clearly, in a business like aerospace, and I was just talking with Bob at lunch, there's not that many countries in the world, okay, and we should be very proud that can design, manufacture, and deliver airplanes. You can count them with just one hand, probably. You know, you're thinking about the US, Brazil, and France, and us. That's pretty much it. Even this week, you know, a very capable country like Japan has been working on an airplane, which was a regional jet, since 2007. The CEO of Mitsubishi came out this week and says, we stop everything. It just doesn't work. It's a very complicated and sophisticated technology journey to be able to design and build an airplane. And we know how the capability the Japanese have. They're a very capable country. But they just dropped it. And we can do it here in Canada. So you look at the Global, the innovation has always been part of our DNA. You know, we already today have the Global 700 in service. We delivered about 130. The green aircraft is manufactured here in Toronto. This is the airplane today that goes in the business aviation faster, further than any other airplane that exists. And just to push the limit, we pushed it with the Global 8000. So last year, we went to Geneva at the air show, and we said, by the way, everybody loves, we have the best airplane, the most performing airplane in the world today, but we're going to come out with the Global 8000, which pushes the limit, again, of technology. So we unveiled it on May. The airplane is going to be able to do 8,000 nautical miles. So you can sit on that airplane and fly for 17, 18 hours. That's a long flight. And the top speed, and I'll show you a little video after that, which we're very proud of, the airplane will be certified 0.94 Mach. In order to be able to certify the airplane at that speed, almost a supersonic speed, we had to fly the airplane more than supersonic to certify the airplane. And proof of that is the next slide, which will be a little video showing the flight test we've done to fly the airplane supersonic.
0.01. You ready? And is ready. Tracy, ready? 3, 2, 1, 3.
There's the Mach. You can feel it. Definitely went Mach 1 there. We're at 4.3. We're above bingo. Beautiful.
So one thing that I have to say is the last airplane, commercial airplane that flew supersonic was the Concorde. So that's the first airplane since the Concorde being able to fly supersonic. I don't know, sorry, okay, I got the slide back. So quickly, 15,900 people, 10,600 are here in Canada, basically. So the majority of our people are based here. We have quite a bit of capability in the US, Mexico, but also worldwide to basically serve the different airplane that we're flying out there to serve our customer. We are also making right now a major investment here in Toronto. As you know, we sold our Downsview facility, which had an airport and everything. We are moving our 2,000 people to the Pearson Airport. So the airplane is coming together. Actually, we're going to be starting moving our people in August, September-ish next year. So we have an all-orchestrated ballet here to be able to continue producing the airplane, and the team is working on it, and it's going pretty well. So we're happy also because it's going to be a state-of-the-art building with 65% lower in terms of GHG emission. Just a bit of a note on our contribution, Bombardier, to the Canadian economy. So that study came out about a year ago now. So we contribute for $5.7 billion annually to the Canadian GDP. That's quite significant. And we are creating, over and above the job I mentioned, of course, with all our suppliers, about 33,000 jobs. And Bombardier's operation generate $2.7 billion in wages every year to the Canadian economy. One thing also worth to mention is the Global 7500 program is $2 billion of GDP. And I just want to remember it's a very unique industry. You know, the Canadian government has put about $250 million we borrowed money for a while, and we're reimbursing that money. But, and you get $2 billion for $250, it's a pretty good deal on a recurring basis year over year for the government. If you look at our journey also on the financial front, you look at our number in 2020, $5.6 billion business with $200 million of EBITDA. This morning, we've announced that our EBITDA has grown from 200 to 930 and $6.9 billion US of revenue. Thank you. Thank you. And the biggest issue at Bombardier were our balance sheet. We had a huge debt. You can see here the net leverage. If you look at the EBITDA and the net leverage that we had was at 40-something, so a pretty ridiculous number. But today we're down to 4.6, which is still not there. We still have work to do, but we have a great path. Actually, the 4.6 was pretty much the target we had for 2025. So we're for 2024. So we're ahead of plan. We've been able to reimburse that. Just last year, we reimbursed $1.1 billion with our own cash generated by the operation. So really the business is trending, and you can see here the guidance this morning. We've talked about $7.6 billion of revenue US, $1.125 billion of EBITDA, and again, cash flow generation, and we'll see in terms of, we haven't guided on the net leverage, but our net leverage will continue to improve, of course. This is a picture, a picture is worth 1,000 words. You can see those are the maturity of debt we had when I started. So we had debt in January 21, in May 21, in December 21. We've been able to face all of that. with the restructuration, using also our own cash. And today, you know, our next maturity is in March 2025. So we are always trying to keep that runway just in case of unpredictability. And we are well on our way to be able to address that way ahead of when it will happen. So clearly, you know, it's been, you know, and we've been upgraded, of course, by Moody's and S&P a couple of times. So that's clearly showing, you know, that the plan is working, and we've been on a successful journey here on the financial point of view. One thing that's important also, of course, we have an industry, you know, that has its own challenge in terms of emission, and we have a plan. You can see here that transportation is about 13% of all emission, and aerospace aviation alone 2%, and business aviation 0.04%. So people can say, oh, that's a small number, but still as an industry, we've committed to bring that 0.04% to neutral by 2050. And we do have an history as an industry of reducing. If you go back to the early 60s, we probably reduced our emission by 50% since then, and we will continue. And it's all going to be about technology. And Bombardier is on that journey also, because we do multiple things right now. The first one is we committed our company this year to only use sustainable aviation fuel. Sustainable aviation fuel right away reduce our emission by 25%. And Bombardier is flying a lot. You know, we fly our demo, we need to build airplane, we need to go test flight the airplane. We have 100 pilots, just to give you a perspective of people all around the world to fly our airplane. So this is gonna be an impact right now of 25%. You know, we have environmental product declaration. We are committed to reduce our emission as a company by 25%, and we're well on our way to do that. But we do massive investment right now in new technology and R&D. The majority of our R&D budget today, probably around 90%, goes to technology to reduce emission. And one of these technology is what we call the EcoJet. I have another small video for you guys, so you'll see a few videos today. But the EcoJet is really changing the shape of an airplane, okay, and reduce friction, improving the aerodynamic. And just with that, we believe we're going to be reducing emission by around 20% without doing anything else. And then there's other things we'll do about, you know, using different, you know, sustainable aviation fuel is one of them. But this is adding up. So just changing the shape, and I'll show you a quick video on what we call the EcoJet. Okay, I just want to spend 2 minutes on this. The high demand in defense right now, I think we're all concerned about the geopolitical state and the situation right now in the world. And clearly it has created momentum in the last year since the invasion of Ukraine about, you know, people wanted to make sure that they have the right, you know, equipment to protect themselves and protect their country. So Bombardier has been around for a while, as I said, but we created Bombardier Defense last year. There's plenty of opportunity. We have airplane flying with the US Army for a long time. We have airplane flying with Germany. We have airplane, you know, the Global Eye airplane, which is a modified Global, flying with in Sweden and flying also in UAE. So we've been quite successful. And the reality of what's happening here is the equipment you put on board to do surveillance and communication is becoming smaller and smaller. And people are saying, I don't need that big platform, not to name anybody here today, Boeing or Airbus. I don't need that platform anymore. We can do it with a much smaller airplane. On top of it, it costs less to operate. you know, it's more environmentally friendly because it produces less emission. And by the way, our global can usually do twice, if not more, the range, okay, that those airplanes can do. So we have airplane that has been flying in the Middle East, you know, and they go for a 10, 12-hour mission, come back, refuel, and go back again. They fly like 5,000 hours a year. This is quite unbelievable. So we've been around, we know how to do it. And in Canada right now, I've been public a little bit with that, so I just want to, so that you guys understand what's at stake here. Canada doesn't have, like the US, you know, multiple contract every year coming up and looking for replacement or increase. But there's one coming up. They're looking at replacing the Aurora CP-140, which is an airplane that, you know, can do, of course, all kind of mission, including defense. And there's an open bid process that is supposed to take place. And those airplanes will have to be replaced in 32, 33, 34. So plenty of time. We have kind of a decade to be prepared. So the only thing we're asking here as a Canadian company, we want to be part of the RFP. So that's very important for us. We have an industry here. A lot of other countries are encouraged and are buying our product. We just want to have, like we say, a shot at it. We're not asking to give us the contract, but we're asking for a fair competition. And I'm sure you've heard before Christmas, there were rumors that, you know, they may just give a contract award to another company and not do an RFP. We believe with the installed base, and I mentioned the 31,000 people, that we should be part of that process. And again, we're not asking for, you know, charity. We're asking to be part of the process. If we win, we win. If we lose, we lose. But at least to have a shot at it. And our airplane, we're pretty sure today, very convinced, we can do it. We have some partner with us, and we know exactly how to bring that airplane to operation to defend our border. Thank you. Thanks for your time. Thank you, Mercedes.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Those are some pretty incredible results that you've had. And I know people were very anxious to see how Bombardier is performing. Obviously, a huge Canadian company. And I'd heard some speculation around Ottawa that you were doing well. But I think you probably blew a lot of that speculation out of the water and went far beyond it today. So I wanted to start by asking you, what do you attribute this kind of success to? How have things changed for you over the last year?
Over the last year? So I think, you know, we've been extremely disciplined. I always tell my team, you need two things to be successful: a good strategy and a good execution. You need both, okay? If you have only a good strategy, you cannot execute it, you won't get anywhere. And if you don't have the right strategy, you can work hard at implementing, but you won't get anywhere also. So I think our team, and I have a team that has a lot of experience. They know that industry inside out. And, you know, we brought the talent that we needed to you know, make sure we do better as an organization, you know, more financial discipline with Bart that came on board as our CFO. And we've been executing that strategy that I was way convinced 3 years ago when we came out that it was going to help us to be successful. So, and of course, you know, the market has been helping. So that's probably, I think, you know, the market has helped us probably to accelerate the execution and be able to generate more cash flow, reimburse more debt, giving us a bit of breathing room. And today we've built, going from 1.5 years to 2 years of backlog on every single platform. So it makes us much more predictable. Like this year, we know pretty much, you know, every single airplane we're going to deliver into who. So we don't have to go and try to sell these airplanes. So that's very helpful and makes us predictable.
Can you talk to us a bit about the growth strategy ahead? Obviously, you're in a financial position to grow.
Yeah.
We have some young people here today who will be the future engineers in your company looking forward towards Canadian aerospace. There's a lot of talk about the labor force in the country right now, about the supply chain issues that you were addressing. How do you plan strategically for the company to continue to look like it looked this year for the next 20 years?
Yeah. So this is a very important question. when you look forward, clearly we're facing the challenge of supplier base. We have people, we are going to have a lot of people retiring in the next few years. So at the same time, it's a challenge, but it's also creating opportunity to bring new talent in. We are deeply in the roots today of working in every single city we're in with the school. We go back to the high school to bring kids to visit so that they get into the right program and they become a technician after and work for us. So this is important as an organization that you need to support, the schooling system, bring the kids so that they understand that there's other things than, I don't know, being an engineer, or you can be a technician also if you like, that type of work. And those are well-paid jobs. So doing that is very important, and we need to be proactive in doing it. Supplier, we had a lot of issue in the last year. I would say today, I said this morning, there's less issue, but some are more profound. So we still need to work at it. That's why I think this morning, we said it, Bart and I, we were conservative in our guidance because there's a few things we need to sort out to deliver all the airplane and potentially do better. That's why we guided greater than 138 airplane. But, the problems are there and they're real. So we need to sort them out. But when you look at the growth path, the manpower, having the right skilled labor force will be key. But the other aspect also is you need the money to be able to invest, okay? This is a capital-intensive business. When you develop a program, you need to spend money. But it doesn't mean you always need to design a brand-new airplane. I know the engineers love it, but sometimes you take, like we did with the 8000, we went from a 7500 and we're improving. We're spending a couple of $100 million to do that, but it's the right thing to do. And the company is in a position today, because this morning we're sharing, and we'll give more guidance at Investor Day for 2025 at the end of March, but we clearly see that this company right now, the way we perform, generates a lot of cash. Okay, we will be generating a lot of cash and we'll be in a good position. Then after, it's our discipline about what do we do with it, cash allocation. I've been clear in the next 2 years it's going to continue to reduce our debt, and we've done it and we continue to do it. And when we are at the same level, I think we're shooting for 2.2, 2.3 of net leverage ratio, similar to our competitor, then we'll start to be happy and say, okay, we can probably reallocate our capital to do other things. But part of that will be growing, investing in product. And investing in product is not just say, we wake up one morning, it's what does the customer want? What is your competition doing? What are the technology also? There's no point today in going out developing a new airplane if you know that technology will be obsolete in 10 years. It doesn't make sense. When you do a program, you want to see it going for 25, 30 years, if not more. So there's a lot of things, but we are very disciplined in our approach, and we'll continue to grow services quite significantly because this is a good business for us.
I grew up in Alberta. So whenever I heard about your company, it was snowmobiles, something we were talking about, not supersonic civilian jet, which is pretty remarkable. I was having flashbacks to the Tom Cruise movie, the new Top Gun, which was hypersonic, not supersonic. It's really remarkable that you're pushing the limits like that. And you really are a force in the Canadian economy. And you're here talking to an audience that is probably significantly Bay Street, Toronto. So can you talk to us a little bit about where Bombardier fits in the national economic picture of Canada, not just from the money perspective, but from the strategic perspective, where after being through a pandemic and the world that we are in now that you made reference to with the actions that China and Russia are taking, and that desire to have trusted companies that we can rely on that are Canadian.
That's a very important part, and we're so proud of being Canadian and representing our country everywhere. As I said, we have thousands of airplanes flying out there. So we're definitely proud of that. But at the same time, the jobs and the quality of jobs we're creating, some are designing. And we need to transmit this knowledge to the next generation also. A lot of brilliant engineers will retire, so we want to make sure we bring, student in and that they start learning and they do a program together. We've seen other countries missing it and totally, be out of that business in one generation.
Not to mention Russia was an example. You know, they were able to produce pretty good airplane in the 80s, but then they completely missed one generation, and they can't today. So I think our presence is important, Mercedes, in a sense that, you know, we're the OEM that developed the airplane, built it. But as I said earlier, we have 5,000 suppliers, and majority of them are Canadian. So a lot of smaller suppliers left, you know, in Ontario, in Quebec, and some are in British Columbia, everywhere in Alberta, are supplying parts to us. And they're real partners that we've been working with on other programs for a long time. So our presence is not just the presence of Bombardier, and yes, we have 15,000 employees, but it's also, there's a lot of people that are supporting us in that journey. And then if we disappear tomorrow, then it's, you know, these jobs disappear too for the majority of them, not all of them, but for the majority. So clearly, I think, you know, the industry of aerospace is important for this country. And it's interesting, you know, we were discussing the other day that Bombardier and a lot of aerospace company like the Avalon and Canadair at the time, we became possible because of the military. They were like tasked at the time in the 40s and the 50s to build, you know, airplane to defend our country or help our ally. So, and we kept the knowledge of that, and we've been able to create a business that is quite significant today. A lot of job. I just shared the number, the financial contribution of Bombardier, but if you take the whole aerospace, we're kind of one of the leader, of course, but if you take the impact of this industry, it's quite significant, and I think important for this country.
One of the most significant challenges you probably have as an aerospace company that primarily builds planes is concerns about the environment that you were alluding to emissions. When everybody is talking about reducing their carbon footprint, but frankly, people still need to travel for business. We were all doing Teams during the pandemic or Zoom or whatever. It is not a replacement for face-to-face. We saw the surge in travel when people were allowed to travel for pleasure again. There's certainly still a desire there. And as you've noted in your call this morning, there is a large percentage of people who could travel privately who aren't doing so now in terms of a market you could expand into. Can you talk to us about some of the actual developments in technology you're having when you talked about that type of fuel, which is environmental? I'm really curious, what is that? How does it work? How does it reduce the footprint?
But this is very significant. So we're using biofuel as an example to mix with regular fuel right now to the magnitude of about 30%. And when we do that, we do reduce by 25% the emission. So that's a significant contribution right away. And we know that this technology is maturing. We are working. Yesterday we had people who were thinking about, can we produce some in Quebec or in Ontario or in Canada? Because today the majority of those fuel are produced in California. And it doesn't make sense to move them here because then you're going to burn fuel on a truck to bring them over. So what we're doing as an example, people came up with a smart idea. We call it book and claim. So I put regular fuel in Montreal on an airplane or in Toronto, but we pay, you know, a premium, and an airplane in California put, you know, the right fuel. So I pay for it, they don't pay for it, but they get the benefits. Overall, we're burning less emission. So we're coming up. Eventually, there's a distribution channel or a challenge right now. It's all too focused in one area, but we're going to need to develop more capability all around the country, the different countries. There'll be pressure also. I think, you know, people are being pressured to use those fuels. So just those fuel will help quite a bit to reduce the emission. I mentioned we're 0.04% of total emission, but still, as an industry, we are very focused, laser focused, and it's not just Bombardier. Even my competitor, Gulfstream, does. So we all understand that we're laser focused on reducing our footprint of emission here. So it's going to come not just from one thing. The fuel is going to be one. Engine technology is going to be one. I showed aircraft technology also. Just changing the shape of the airplane, you can burn 20% less fuel. So it's quite of an innovative design, and we're going to have to figure it out, but we're testing it right now. It's real. So it's not for tomorrow, but we're going to have to work on it. But eventually, we're going to use those capabilities on the next new program we're going to be launching. So R&D is of course, at the heart of that.
We've been dealing with a changing world, as we mentioned, and you do work in the defense sector as
Yes.
well. Canadian defense procurement has been a challenge the entire time that I've been covering it, which has been close to 20 years. It is either super fast or super slow, depending on whether you sole source or have a very extended contracting period, long competition like we saw with the F-35. You were mentioning your ability to contribute there. And one of the things I've heard from defense industries over the years talking to them is that there's a challenge with sustainability in providing defense capabilities to the Canadian military because it's not the same scale, it's not the same size, there's not the same predictability over when the government will buy Canadian versus American, which we're potentially seeing right now with a discussion about the minister going down to Washington, D.C. to talk to American companies there. And at the same time, you have the minister and the chief of the defense staff coming out and saying that Canadian industry needs to be on a war footing. Canadian industry needs to step it up, that they're having to buy from abroad to send to Ukraine because we don't have the capability in Canada. I am curious how you feel about those comments.
Yeah. So, you know, when I look at it, as you know, we're talking about one specific case right now, the Aurora replacement. So those airplanes could fly until, you know, 2032, 33, 34-ish. We clearly have the capability to replace those airplanes, you know, and we're not saying they need to do it tomorrow. We'll be there at the right time. What we did not understand is why there was certainly an urgency to replace those, you know, without an RFP, appropriate purchasing, you know, process, and us having the chance to compete. So, as I said earlier, we're not asking any favor here. We just want to be able to compete. We're pretty comfortable that we have a great product. Other countries have purchased it. And you're right, you know, the size of the order maybe not justify all the investment, but if we are using this and after I have the technology and we can export, you know, what we've developed with the Canadian government in a sense to other friendly country, of course, you know, with their permission, you know, this is creating job in Canada also. And, you know, and we're using R&D capabilities and technology that we may have developed with this program to go. And you know, the American and the French do this every day. This morning, Gulfstream got a contract of $140 million just to do R&D and services on a contract. But most of the time, these guys will develop technology, and then they'll come and compete with us on the commercial side. You know, that it's been, you know, the money came from their military. I don't have that. I haven't seen it happen here. So I just want to be opportunistic to say when there's one, we should work together. But of course, we have to be competitive. We have to offer the right product and everything. But we should not miss these opportunities. So hopefully, you know, I'll get a call eventually that there'll be an RFP process. That's the only thing I'm asking. So.
I can tell you the military is very aware we're having this conversation because I got some notes about it last night in advance with some questions about the product and what was exactly happening with the plane. I said, I don't know, I don't work for the company, but we are going to talk about it tomorrow. It's something they're watching very closely. And I guess I would ask you at this opportunity, can you compare what your plane can do compared to what the Boeing plane would be able to do to replace the Aurora, which of course is like hugely important right now as we're seeing aerial surveillance. It didn't go away with the Cold War.
Yep,
Saw the Chinese balloon.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's still very much even old technology being used there.
Yeah. You know, but clearly, you know, we're talking about replacing. That's going to be the new generation. So there'll be all kind of refreshed technology. And I'm sure my competitor can probably come up with the same technology on the airplane. But the one thing I said is our airplane being smaller, our airplane can probably do twice the range that my competitor can do. If we can do twice the range, you know, the size of Canada is quite significant. That could be probably an advantage. And the second thing is the cost of operation. We believe they'll need to burn 50% more fuel probably with the same product to do the same mission. So if they burn 50% more fuel, that's more emission, more pollution, but also the cost of operation will be quite more substantial. So that's why we believe we have a competitive product. So let's compete. We're ready.
Growth is something that the government talks about a lot, and growth with companies. And when we're talking about the aerospace industry and what you're working on, do you see opportunities for growth for federal government investment in companies, not just like yours, but to try to grow the whole industry? Because one company alone, of course, won't sustain industry-wide. You provide a lot of contracts, but I'd imagine the larger that industry is in Canada, the more beneficial it is to keeping companies like yours in a strong position.
Absolutely. But defense contract is a good place to start, but also supporting technology investment is also a good place for the government to participate, help our industry, to stay competitive, because the other country are, either via military money or other mean, this is a high cash and intensive capital industry. But when it works, when you have the right technology, and I think we're the proof of that right now with our financial result, this is an industry that can generate quite a lot of money, but also quality job for the long run. This industry has been around here for decades and decades. I won't say 100 years, but almost getting there.
I want to ask a couple of the questions from the floor that people have submitted.
Absolutely.
This one is, how do we continue to build trust in Canadian designed and built technology?
That's a good question. So, Bombardier has developed 30 airplanes in the last 30 years, okay? There's one program we didn't bring to the end, the Learjet 85. That's the only one we've abandoned. We had all kind of technical issue. We stopped that one. Every single other program has been, sometimes with difficulty and sometimes putting more money at it. But when you play with the highest technology potentially, the risk is there. And we all remember the C-Series, financially was becoming unsupportable for us. But today, that airplane flies. It's been designed and built. It's still built in Canada. And we still have 3,000 jobs in Montreal. And the airplane is probably one of the best airplanes that any airline has operated today. So that's a Canadian product still being built for the majority of them here in Canada. So we should trust that, we've come up with a lot of programs. And there's been a time, probably 10 years ago, with all kind of new certification requirement, much more software, which every OEM, by the way, has struggled. Boeing were late 4 years, Airbus were late 4 years, we were late 4 years. But, some had deeper pocket than some others, they could go through it. But I think we need to trust our industry. We have a very capable industry here in Canada, but we just need to make sure that, we continue to reinforce it and keep it up to speed. But we do a lot of things here, and we have a lot of capabilities.
How do you change the perception, and what is your message, and how do you get it across to Canadians beyond this is a Quebec-based company that makes private planes, which I'll never own, so, well, why do I care? Why am I involved? To understanding the role that your company plays in the economy, the role that you play strategically, the fact that, we saw the balance sheets, things have turned around drastically from what the perception is. People remember subsidies, they remember government loans, and now you're in a very different position. So how are you going to translate that not only to government leaders, but to the average Canadian?
Yeah. No, that's a very important question. So you come to the Canadian Club in Toronto, that's number one. But other than that, I think it's important that we carry our message. And I have to tell you, the first thing that I needed to do was to get our own employee, re-engaged in believing. And we're there, believe me. So our employee, they had a tough ride. It was difficult, challenging, and you go to the barbecue, summer picnic, and you go to Christmas, and everybody talk to you about how it seems to be difficult. And it was tough, for a lot of them. Because you work for a company and you're proud of the company you work, and what you do is not that easy. So anyway, I think we've passed that. For me right now, the biggest reward is to be able to win, put points on the board for our people. So our employee at first need to be able, I have 15,900 of them plus the supplier, they need to go back out there. It cannot be just me, but we need to go out there. And that's one thing we've done in the last 3 years. So our employee today, we've seen our engagement survey, just raising and raising over the last 3 years. Our people want to be proud, of what they do, and they want to shine. So that was number one. And I think I have a job to do also, to go out there, explain our business, because there was a lot of misunderstanding. Between us, we have a lot more successes than failure. And I know we had a few failures in the last 10 years, but I think it's important to repeat that. Talk about, hey, we have the airplane that flies further higher than any other airplane that exists right now in the world today. It's built here. Let's be proud of that and showcase those examples, because it's made in Canada completely. Thank you.
one last sort of out of left field question to you, but I always like to ask this of people who are in leadership positions because I think it's a great opportunity to learn. What has been your greatest lesson as a leader of a major company that you would impart with people here today?
You know, I always make a lot of pride of being authentic. I always tell my guys, be authentic, be yourself. And, you know, I also mention, make sure you have the right strategy, be engaged, execute on it. But I think being authentic and telling the truth to your people, to your stakeholder, is always important. That's what we've been doing. So anyway, there's no other way for me to do things, so it's easy to say, but I think it's super important as a leader that people feel that you're telling the truth, that you're engaged and you're committed and they can trust you. So that's, for me, a very key point.
Well, Eric, thank you so much. It's
Thank
a
you,
lot of
Mercedes.
lessons and a lot of revelations.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much.
Eric, merci mille fois pour votre leadership et félicitations à toute l'équipe chez Bombardier. On behalf of Canadian Club members and guests, thank you for selecting our venue to share your story and the incredible story of the entire Bombardier team. Our huge congratulations. I think I'll kind of bring the room in for these congratulations for your leadership and creating a true champion, not only in Canadian aerospace, but truly in Canadian industry. We couldn't be more proud. Congratulations. And Mercedes, thank you to you for your very adept and expert moderation of our conversation today. Ladies and gentlemen, before we conclude, let me briefly share some information about some of our upcoming events. On Tuesday, February 14th, we'll feature a distinguished panel of leading chief executives to discuss, frankly, a question that we discussed at our table today, Canada's immigration advantage and the role of immigration in our future. Included in that panel will be luminaries such as Victor Dodig from CIBC and Penny Wise from 3M Canada. And on Tuesday, February 28th, Bernard Lord, Chair of the Canadian Life and Health Insurance Association, as well as Chief Executive Officer of Medavie, will also be joining us at this podium. So please visit us at canadianclub.org to find out more, purchase your tickets, and purchase your memberships to the club. One more time before we break it off, I'd like to offer a sincere round of thanks and appreciation to today's event sponsor, TD. And thank you all of you for joining us today live as well as online. We look forward to seeing you again very, very soon.